You probably won't be able to see it. Hmm? You will, yeah, but it'll be over there.
And you're on.
Thank you, Amnon. This is Bill Dixon with the Lessons of Vietnam show. We're trying something new and different tonight. I am in Kinston, North Carolina with the proprietor and museum head, Eric Cantu, at the G.I. Joe Military. What's the total title here?
Military Living History Museum.
Military Living History Museum here in downtown Kinston. If you get a chance, be sure and come by. But we're going to give you a 5-cent tour tonight. But the curator of the museum here is Eric Cantu, Vietnam veteran and Native American. And whatever else you want to do, Eric is involved, very involved with all kinds of veterans issues, VVA, Rolling Thunder, and so forth. Eric, tell us a little bit about where you got started, how you got in the military, and how you got to Vietnam.
Okay, Bill. Well, I entered the military at the age of 17. I wanted to get away from home, get an education, and travel. So I had an opportunity to go into the Army, and I took it. Originally went into communications until I found out a 31110 was an infantry communications specialist and carrying a Brick 25. I didn't really like that. So I re-enlisted, went into aviation maintenance. I became a Chinook helicopter maintenance mechanic and eventually a gunner. So I had a very good military career for about 4 years. And by the time I hit the ocean, I decided it's time for me to come home and give it up. That's how I got started in the military, and I gave it up for about 10 years, and I joined the National Guard in 1977. I was in the 1st Cavalry Division, Company B, 228th Aviation Battalion, and I served 66, 67 at On K, in and thereabouts. Bill, I really enjoyed being able to leave all that behind me. But in the National Guard, I saw a sense of things that I needed to do. I did it for 2 or 3 years, left the Guard, and I forgot about my military entirely up until I met Ted Sampley about 15, 17 years ago.
Eric, we are here at the entrance of the museum right off Heritage Street. And tell us a little bit about what the entrance right here and what you've got. I see you got some T-shirts and stuff for sale and some other paraphernalia on the wall. How about telling us about that? And what I'm going to do is walk back behind the camera and let you give us a tour through the museum, and I'll try to keep up with you on the camera.
Okay. Sounds good, Bill. And I appreciate the opportunity to do this. Our museum has basically been here for about 2 years. We started it on a shoestring. So us veterans pulled out of our own pockets to start this. So we wanted to make it as historically accurate as possible and provide a means for our children and our grandchildren to learn about the military efforts. I do have a few T-shirts and hats. We've got bands, necklaces, other such paraphernalia, basically for those people who come in and say, well, you know, my uncle was in service. I'd like to buy a gift for him. This helps us just a little bit defray the expenses of operating this museum. We released the building, and I'm going to come out to the front, and I'm going to walk over this way because now you get an opportunity to see just a little bit more. As we enter the building, we have our paraphernalia, but then we start running our tour basically through the Revolutionary War period. First thing that most kids spot is this radio control model of a B-17 Fortress. And that was placed there by one of our radio control model guys to remind people of the World War II efforts. As we travel along down through the museum, we go through a Revolutionary period, the American Indian Wars, and then we go to the World War I section. So if you kindly follow me, Bill, we'll take a trip over into World War I. Many of us folks, many of us veterans, have really enjoyed putting this event together. We really took a lot of time to place this on in and keep it going as we need to show the different military periods. So you can come on around, Bill. As the camera comes in to the right of our wall, we have a very nice statue of American Indian. And this is right after and between the Revolutionary War and Civil War period. As most people know, Eastern North Carolina is very famous for all of its Civil War sites. We have a lot around Eastern North Carolina. The Battle of Wise Fort, the Battle of Kinston was very predominant. Our museum is the only museum that picks up after the Civil War and goes on into the World War I era. From World War I, natives of North Carolina and for Kinston area, we have medals, we have some of the paraphernalia, uniform clothing that they wore, all on display. We have photographs on the wall of grandfathers who served during World War I. Also in this period, between World War I and World War II, we normally have a video running for people who come in off the street, like to have a minute or two to sit down and watch one of the war zones or one of the war periods being activated on the TV. The next section, of course, is World War II. World War II, of course, is the generation of all generations. And here we have much more paraphernalia and much more artifacts of that period. Once again, plenty of our hometown sons and daughters who served during that period is on the wall. We collect material daily from individuals who are interested in seeing our museum grow. And we are growing. We're growing much more rapidly than we thought we would. We're almost to the point that we're running out of room at this point now. I once had a friend by the name of Jimmy Jones who was a Korean veteran. He passed away, and at his funeral, I met one of his friends from Fort Bragg, Roberto Riviera. He just happened to work down at Fort Bragg's special events area. And he said, I'll help you make posters. I'll help make wall signs for you. You pay for the materials, and our crew will work after hours to help you get it done. He's done a fantastic job in putting our photographs together. He's done a fantastic job in being able to give us direction in which we could have a transgression of the war periods. Some of that you see here on the walls are his work, his team's work. Also, you probably see the Lego aircraft. That was made by Matt Tribula. I believe he is currently in charge of the Highway Patrol Aviation Division. But that was his hobby, making airplanes out of Legos. Legos make special parts for him. Also, we have a case of model aircraft, plastic models, that was built by Lieutenant Colonel Herman McLaughlin, which you'll meet earlier tonight, or a little bit later, I should say. But all of these aircraft are built to scale, the same scale. And that way, as folks come in here, they get an idea of what the size in comparison to other aircraft are. Now we will go over to our World War II section. And as we go into Korea, I'd like to introduce you to a Korean veteran. Lieutenant Colonel Herman McLaughlin. Hey, Colonel. Good. How about telling us folks about some of the history of Korea and maybe point out a few things here on the wall that you know about?
Thank you very much. Well, first of all, I was a draftee. And served in Korea the winter of 51 and 52. And I was an enlisted man. And all my commission time was later. We're looking at right here, this little section of Korea. Korea was a different war. It was fought much like the World War I. We lived in bunkers and fought in trenches. And we had a lot of, particularly the generals, a lot of them had come through World War II. And a lot that came through Korea went on to serve in Vietnam. And I'll just say the book, A Forgotten War. He tells about the generals that came through, and in the early days of the war, and they were one right after the other. What we have here is a picture that depicts all of the nations. There were 23 different nations that were the Allies. The death toll during the war, the casualties, was enormous. It ran about 1,000 a month. For the 37 months the war lasted, we had about 38,000 KIAs from America. And in addition to the KIAs from America, we had the Katusas, which were the Korean augmentation teams that fought right with us. They were part of our army. And there was another 7,000, which made for the American casualties for the war up to 43,000. And it only lasted 37 months, and compared to 54,000 in the years of Vietnam, and you can see how much it was. Right here is a picture that depicts the first casualty of the Korean War. His name was PFC Shadrick, and he was killed on July the 4th, 1950. He was a member of the 24th Infantry Division and was the first American. The guy in the bottom corner is Harold Cross. Sergeant Cross died at 20:30 hours on July the 27th, 1953, 1 hour and 30 minutes before the ceasefire. He died of wounds 3 hours later. He was the last KIA. I never met him, but I've met some guys that he served with. I would just like to say this. I've been asked many times, was it worth it? And my answer is yes. And I say, all you have to do is look at the Korean nation today, one of the greatest economic countries in the world at the time. Thank you very much, and I'm signing off.
All right. Thanks, Herman. That was great. Thank you very much, because it's very rare that we get the opportunity to listen and talk to one of our Korean veterans who is as knowledgeable as Herman is. I mentioned earlier this evening that part of my growth back into my interest of the Vietnam War or any war was through Ted Sampley. A lot of people knew Ted Sampley throughout the world. Some liked him, some didn't like him, but he was very instrumental in doing many things for the country that a lot of people do not understand. Ted was one of the 4 individuals that founded Rolling Thunder, along with Ray Monza, who was on the first ride in Washington, D.C., came along Walt Sides and John Holland. I remember back in the year 2000 when Ted Sampley was at the wall, he had a chance to meet, and one of our guys here from North Carolina, Ralph Smith, along with Adrian Cronauer. The 3 of them really formed a good partnership, And I'm very pleased to have Ralph with us, as a matter of fact, tonight. He's been very active lately in our military veterans affairs and has been graciously appreciated. Okay, let's go over to the Vietnam era. But on the way, let's stop and get a cup of coffee. Let's do that. One thing at the museum is we do have a coffee shop for us to sit down, be able to speak just a little bit with each other, get some ideas of what we want to do in life, talk of some of the things we have done. But camaraderie is a very important part of the military life. And as you can see, we got a crowd of folks in here now tonight. Even got a Marine in here. Two of you. All right. Thank goodness we got two Marines. Our Vietnam era is part of the era that is most predominantly talked about today because it is the closest time to history that we guys know and what's in the schools. Would like to be able to ask Ralph if he would come over for a minute or two and explain some of this that's on this wall. Ralph Smith is a very active individual in our veterans events here at GI Joe's. Ralph Smith.
Thank you, Eric. This is Vietnam. I was in Vietnam. I was in Vietnam in 1966-67, and I was in the 27th Infantry Wolfhounds, 25th Division, and I served in the infantry. I was what it's called as a ground pounder, and and I was proud to be able to serve and do that my job, and I had a lot of support and everything. So over on this wall right here, we have a lot of pictures. We have a judge on the wall here of the pictures, and he's very active. He's just retired from being a judge. And up on the wall, this here picture right here. This picture right here is of a Lawrence Joel was a medic in over there, and they were big and rich. Wrote a song from talking to him, 8th of November, Operation Hump. And so that was very popular and everything for them. Then we got all these pictures of people that we respect, and one of our aims is to be an educational for our younger generation and all of the older generation. A lot of them don't know a lot about it, and we try to commemorate with all the people that we see and everything. And as we go along here, I shouldn't show you this picture up here because it's me when I was over there and everything. But you don't have to show it if you don't want to. My wife put it together and said that she was going to put it down there, her and Carol. But anyway, they did, and I'm proud of it, and I'm proud of my service and what I did, and I would not take nothing for the experience that I had in my life. And also, we go around over a year, we start with some more Vietnam and stuff and everything. And I got one other person that is a Marine that we would love to introduce and let him tell what his job, what he did. He was in the 1st Marine Division. He was in personnel and everything. So I'm going to let him introduce himself. His name is Doug Nobles, and let him tell you what he did.
Thank you, Ralph. I was in the 1st Marine Division from December 1969 to December 70. Primarily, I worked in an administrative area, providing administrative support for the troops. That being said, the 1st Marine Division was not exactly surrounded, but I had an area of hills around it with bunkers, and we had to take our turn as well, standing guard duties at night, as well as going on patrol. But I'm very humble having been a Marine and seeing what all the branches of the service did in Vietnam. And I just want to say, too, how impressed I am with the GI Joe Museum here in Kinston, and how fortunate we are to have it. Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to introduce you to another guy, a Vietnam veteran, Willie Laughinghouse, and he's going to talk a little bit of rest of what Vietnam, and we appreciate everything.
Good evening. My name is Willie Laughinghouse. Of course, I was in Vietnam. And, you know, back in the day, we had draft days, and I was one of the draftees that went to Vietnam. Growing up in the South and being an old country boy, had no idea what the war was all about. And I probably would have been opposing, but it's time to serve your country. And I thought it was my duty to do my job. So when I went to Vietnam, had no idea what it was about, other than the fact I was going to what I thought was a good, peaceful zone. And I ended up with the 25th Infantry Division. Have never been around an artillery gun in my life. Did not know what it was. Had never seen one. But so I was assigned to artillery unit as a teletype operator and in communications. However, I was short-lived because you learn a lot and you learn fast for survival. My days in the artillery unit, got to know some guys I had never seen before from Texas, California, and that was one of my exciting times, I guess. But however, I served in Vietnam during the Tech offense. And during the Tech, I became wounded in an ambush with a ammunition truck. And basically, I was injured very, very badly. And in fact, I was burned beyond recognition, even to myself. However, I know it was nothing but God that brought me back and healed me, because I stand today to thank God for that experience. I wouldn't take anything for it. But however, we got some pictures back here of guys that I served with. These guys was ahead of me. A couple of guys I know, Navy guys, I served with him in Vietnam. Plus, we worked together for 30 plus years at DuPont. Roland Jack, Marines. And this picture right here, tell you about we didn't never leave nobody behind. And this guy right here, just thanking God for being able to say, God, I made it through this ambush. That's what it was from day to day. Every day was a new experience. And you're talking about changing clothes. There were many days, weeks at a time, we never even had a chance to pull our shoes off to change clothes. But that's what war is about. It's about survival and survival and survival. I thank God for the opportunity to be here tonight, and thank God for the opportunity to just serve and let everybody know that war is war and peace is peace. So I thank God for all the things that we have been through. And, you know, one thing about peace, it's not easy. I lost a lot of guys in Vietnam. So when you see somebody, just only thank them for Vietnam, but thank them for every day for what they did to serve our nation and keep everybody free. Because freedom was not free. Thank you, Eric, for the opportunity. Thank you, God.
Thank you, Willie. I appreciate that a lot, Willie, because Willie has really put some rough times. You see, for many of us veterans, all of our experiences are the same, yet different. Each of us, during our tours of duty for the 10 years of that war, served a different year. Each year was different. Each time and each job category was different. I was a fortunate individual. I did not have to be out in the middle of the field all the time. Thank God for the infantry. We have some artifacts that a lot of you guys who are in service know about. But for you folks that don't, we have some good old C rations. And I'm going to open up and see what I can do to get some. Meals on Wheels in a can, the originals. And I don't know about you guys, but there's a 4-pack. So if you got them, burn them. If you don't, pick up the butts the guys dropped. Standard rule. Best way for us to get around in Vietnam was the good old cavalry way in helicopters. And as my friend Joe Galloway says, the sound of that Huey is the soundtrack of our war. And I'll never forget that statement. Not ever will I forget that sound. Also, we have Murphy's Laws of Combat. I'd like to read a couple and see if they make sense to you guys. One is, you are not Superman. Number two, if it's stupid but it works, it isn't stupid. Don't look conspicuous, it draws fire. And that is why aircraft carriers are called bomb magnets. And when in doubt, empty your magazine. That works all the time. But the simple things are always hard to do, and the easy way is always mined. So take the most difficult route to your spots. Vietnam, to me, had a time war zone that started back in 1954 and still ended officially in 1975. Our time war was very simple. The Geneva Accords, the Gulf of Tonkin. We had the USS Pueblo, the Malay Massacre. The Nixon sends troops to Cambodia, the Paris Peace Accords. The war begins in 1959. War protesters march on the Pentagon. In 1968, we had the Tet Offensive. 1968, Richard Nixon wins the presidency. 1970, 6 students were killed at the universities. And in 1975, the Vietnam War ended. What a timeline. It was a difficult timeline. We're going to leave Vietnam for just a few minutes, run real quick through the modern day war periods of Afghanistan and Iraq. These modern day war periods are periods in which I know very little, but most of our younger men can tell you plenty. Our museum has representatives from every war period, from World War, I stand corrected, from Korea all the way up to present day, to talk about their periods of active duty. These are just a few of the artifacts that we have in this museum at this time. The field cross was introduced back during our Vietnam era, and I'll bring this around because I want you to see that this field cross was set up for Vietnam. The boots, the helmet, the rifle, and a set of dog tags. Today, the guys over in Iraq and Afghanistan do the very same thing when they do their memorials to their fallen. As we travel around in this room, we are seeing bits and pieces of modern day warfare. In the back of this room, we have started our museum theater. Within the next couple of weeks, we plan to start running Saturday matinees. And we will show documentaries from each war period that we have from the government and from other sources. So if I can, we'll walk you right back into the theater. We have a total of 35 seats in this theater, classroom size. We were very fortunate that each of our students gets to sit into a United Airlines seat, very similar to one of those that took us home after the war. Right now, we only have a big screen television, is one of the old type. Someday we'll get a grant and put up a nice flat screen so everybody can see real well. So far, we've been able to do a lot of talks by special interest individuals. The if you would like, and you, is some brief photographs. So I'll walk you through this way fairly quickly. Okay. Mike, can you get over there? Okay. You guys want to make a little space for the camera crew? And we're on the air. So we're going to go over now, and we're going to talk about the POWs and also the Medal of Honor recipients. For this important talk, I would like to have Mike Tribula to please come up and describe to you what we have in this area. Mike?
Thank you, Brother Eric. Since the beginning of Salute, when Ted and Eric started this organization, we were always very interested in POWs because of a local fellow from Kinston was a POW for 7 years at the Hanoi Hilton. His name was Red McDaniel. So we've got a special place on the wall here for Red. Then we were able to meet a young lady by the name of Linda Polacco out of Durham, and she works with the USO there. And she made us a special POW chair. And to our knowledge, G.I. Joe's is the only museum in the country that has a POW chair like this. On the seat of the chair is the name of every MIA still missing from the state of North Carolina in the Vietnam War. And along the edge of the chair is every state in the Union with the number of MIAs still recorded as missing in action. Now, what makes this chair very unique is that whenever Pearl Harbor identifies through DNA and remnants some poor service guy that got lost and is declared dead now, she comes down and puts a white rose next to their name because they've been returned to North Carolina. The other thing we have here is the POW-MIA table, and there are several people in the state, Eric being one of them, that knows how to do a ceremony. Everything on the table has a special meaning for it. The red rose is for the missing in action. The table saw, the fork, knife, and spoon is set up a certain way. The Psalms and the New Testament are on the table. The lemon, they all have a different meaning to the POW-MIA table. The POW-MIA wall that you are not forgotten, and that's one thing we've been true to here at Salute and at G.I. Joe's, is for our POWs. A funny story, back in August, we had a dedication for our 45-foot flagpole outside. And Captain McDaniel was here for that. And he was standing here, kind of where we are now, and he's looking at the pictures. And he starts naming some of these men off because he knew them all in captivity. And you could have seen 5 old 75-year-old and 70-year-old men crying because he knew these guys. That's an interesting wall. We'll come around here to the Medal of Honor. By the way, all the walls here are done in wallpaper. That's something that Eric got made for us that we put up. And they started out as little pictures, and they were blown up to wallpaper. These are all the Medal of Honor winners in the state of North Carolina, dating back from the Civil War, World War I, II, Korea, and Vietnam. And then we have a special plaque here for Colonel Joe Marm, who at the Battle of the I Drank Valley won his Medal of Honor. And we've got a picture of Joe right here, and you can get a shot at him. This is Joe Marm receiving his Medal of Honor. So this is a special section here in Joe's We feel very proud of it. We pay a lot of attention to the POWMIA issue. Eric, you ready back for the mic? Here you go, brother.
So as you all can see, we have quite a variety of information available in such a small space. G.I. Joe's is our face as an organization of salute, a tribute to America's veterans. As we have a rental facility, and we are making strides and making it one of the best in the state, we also realize we're very quickly running out of space, running out of room. Fundraising is our primary source of keeping ourselves supported. We charge nothing to come in and visit. We encourage schools, churches, scout groups, any organization that would like to come and participate in a program. We will set a program for you based on your needs. But once again, donations are most important. And we're very fortunate to get a few. We've been open now for going on 2 years. We're looking forward to another 10 years if possible before you have to have another building. But if any of you would like to help us, and like I say, it's just us small veterans, little guys, got together, pooled our money together, our talents, and we have built this together. We would like to let you know that we are a 501c3 organization. We have been for 17 years. We just got a face. We need your help. We need your donations if possible. You can mail donations to G.I. Joe's or Salute at Post Office Box 5195, Kinston. Zip code is 28503. Bill, I don't know much else to tell you.
Eric, stay right here. If they want to make a donation and would like to have a receipt, you can send them a receipt for the tax purposes.
Absolutely.
Okay, and it's okay if they have some war paraphernalia that they're not up in a box someplace or in their attic and they'd like to donate that, they can do the same thing.
Absolutely.
Okay. All right, this is G.I. Joe's museum here in Kinston. It's worth your time to drive down to Kinston and spend some time here. What are your hours?
Our hours are Wednesday through Saturday, 9 to 4 p.m., Saturday through Wednesday by special request.
Okay. And you can come down and have a cup of coffee or whatever. And the mailing address is 211 North Heritage, Kinston, zip code 28501. That was from information from the boss lady of this organization and so forth. So be sure if you got some spare change, you'd like to help a good cause, and come down and see it. Just don't bring your check down and come through the museum, look at some of the pictures. Some of these guys you met on air just a minute ago might be here having a cup of coffee. If you make a big enough donation, they'll probably buy you a cup of coffee. Okay, and like I said, be sure and come down. Some other things that are coming up. Let's see. You've got a fundraiser coming up for what's that? Oh
yeah, Stew and Brew with Mother Earth Brewing Company Saturday. We're doing fish stew competition. We have competitors coming from Raleigh, Wilmington, Greenville, Grifton, Kinston to vie for the Carolina Classic Fish Stew. It's a stew and brew, so those with Mother Earth, you buy a sample of fish stew, you get one of their craft beers, Pepsi or water, whatever you like. And that's this Saturday, and it actually begins at 12 noon and ends at 5 o'clock in the evening.
Now, Eric, what does that money go for?
That money goes for keeping the lights on, paying the rent, the utilities, making sure that our insurance is paid, and so that we can get out into the schools and carry our program to the students if they can't come to us.
What you're telling me is this: the city of Kinston is not donating a whole lot of money, that you still have to pay the light bill and water bill and that sort of stuff?
We pay everything. We pay everything. We get no money from no government or no tax money. We get absolutely nothing. Everything comes off of what we generate and what comes out of our pockets.
And I understand you've got substantial investment out of your own pocket in this museum and so forth. So you're not exactly going to get rich and go to Bahamas or anything.
Don't think so.
Okay. That's coming up this coming Saturday. Come to Kinston, have a brew and some fish stew or something, and then come by to see the museum. It's within walking distance of each other. In fact, if we can look out the door, you can see it. It's available Saturday. And what's the hours for that, you said?
Be from 12 to 5.
Okay, that's when the big hand and the little hand both are on 12. Don't forget daylight savings time coming in on Sunday, but you don't have to worry about it. And you need to come before the snow gets here because we're going to have a big snow on Sunday, I understand. On March 16th at the North Carolina History Museum in Raleigh, there will be a symposium there. It's Vietnam, Gulf War I, Gulf War II, and Afghanistan, the similarities and differences. We're going to talk about the similarities of the different wars and how they're different. As Eric mentioned a while ago, the Vietnam War was very similar to everybody, but different. Depending on what year you were in Vietnam, where you were stationed, and what your job was, all of our stories were the same. But the two things I think all Vietnam veterans can relate to would be the smells and the heat. I grew up in North Carolina in the back of fields, and I thought we used to heat and humidity into that plane door open, and I realized I was not back in North Carolina. And the smells are very unique. You guys, do y'all remember the smells and so forth when that plane door opened? It's not something you notice every day, unless you live at a dump. If you live in a city dump, you might notice a little bit. Eric, we're running close on time. Is there anything else you want to tell? You guys want to tell us something so forth and come to Mike again and become famous? We'll do autographs afterwards and say something about the museum and what y'all are doing here. It's a great organization. Come down and have a cup of coffee, meet a Vietnam vet, Korean vet. Now, if you're going to talk to the Marine, use big word. Don't use big words for the Marines. Maybe bring a Navy guy with you so he can explain what's going on and so forth. But by the way, sir, you were in the Marine Corps. Do you know why the Marines were in Vietnam 13 months and the Army was only there 12 months? Well, they have a monkey over there called a rock ape. You throw a rock at the monkey, he'd throw it back at you. It took an extra 30 days to explain to the Marines so they'd understand, don't throw grenades at the monkeys. That's why the Marines were there 13 months, I think. Now, I don't know that for a fact. That's what a Navy guy told me. And I knew he wouldn't have told me a story or anything. I'm not certain what the time is. Looks like we still got a little bit more time. Talk about the museum a little bit more. Ted Sampley, we used to call him the Kinston Crazy, but I tell you what, nobody believed in his message more and knew what was going on as far as the POWs. I've seen all the big magazines call him and ask him for information on POWs, and he has quite a story just in himself. And you inherited the salute from him and some other things that are here in Kinston. You remember the VFW, the Vietnam Veterans of America, North Carolina Vietnam Veterans, American Legion. You just joined things, I guess, and you're going to be in Washington D.C. for the big Memorial Day. We're expecting about 1 million bikes and so forth. Talk a little bit about that and how that ties in with the museum and so forth.
Yeah, Bill, let me tell you this too. Salute was put together as a group of people that came back from Ted's experience in Washington, D.C. on Memorial Day on the Freedom Ride. We brought that show back to our hometown for Veterans Day. And that was the basis for this whole program to begin with, for veterans to get together, enjoy the camaraderie of the civilians, and put on a show that we could honor all veterans. Hence, we have our Veterans Day Salute program. Ted Sampley identified the unknown soldier from Vietnam and proved that the government knew who he was before they buried him.
You mean they buried somebody in the tomb of an unknown soldier and knew who he was?
Absolutely. They found particles of Michael Blassie in his flight suit, in his helmet from his aircraft, and had all of that at JPAC. But they needed someone to appease the Vietnam veterans at that time, and they buried someone they called an unknown. Ted was looking for his father-in-law. and stumbled across the fact that this airman was indeed Michael Blancy.
That was Robin Owens.
Robin Owens was his wife at the time.
What was her father's name? I forgot. It's Owens, but I can't remember the. It's terrible to get old, isn't it? I tell you. Also coming up on March 6th, 24th, 25th, and 26th in Raleigh is the Vietnam Experience. You can go to the North Carolina History Museum there. It's a Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday situation. We'll have runnings of this show, all the different shows we've done out the time. We'll have helicopters there. We'll have dioramas. We'll have a 1/8 version of Vietnam Veterans Memorial Wall. We'll have uniforms, weapons, just about anything Vietnam we'll have there for you to come see, bring your kids and so forth. It's quite an experience. And sit down and watch for a while of the well-reclaimed, just fantastic play called Etchings in Stone, which will be recording there. Come watch that. And then on May, we said, Eric, we said May 6th was the anniversary of the 30th anniversary of the, on May 6th in Raleigh at the state capitol, there at the memorial there, it will be the 30th anniversary of the wall. Come down for that at 12 o'clock noon. And I think Eric's got another thing he wants to say. Then I'm gonna let you finish up.
All right, thank you, Bill. Actually, I want to turn it over to Mike Tribula, because one of our friends here at the museum has had a very special place in our country. And I'd like Mike to explain it, because I know Ralph won't do it.
Well, that's why we talk about Ralph sometimes. Ralph Smith, y'all met him before. Several years ago, the state of North Carolina put up a wall at the Special Operations Museum down at Fort Bragg. And on these walls, veterans' hands were bronzed for that wall. And when they came to the local veterans organizations like the VFW and the American Legion, Colonel McLawhorn and a few fellas started looking around for the most decorated veteran in Lenoir County. And Ralph Smith is the most decorated veteran in Lenoir County. And his hands were bronzed, and they are on the wall at the Special Operations Museum. Now, that's a nice museum also for Fort Bragg. Kind of like this one here, but maybe a little bit bigger. And but we're very proud of Ralph for having done that, and for his service to the country, and for being here as part of GI Joe's with us all the time. So when you go down to Fort Bragg, look for Ralph's name and his hands on that bronze wall.
Thanks a lot, Mike. And I thank you, Ralph, and God bless you, because if it weren't for you, a lot of people wouldn't be here today. And I know if they were here, they'd say the same thing. I guess we all want to say go Wolfhounds, because Ralph was one of the Wolfhounds. Well, folks, I tell you, it's been great having you here. It's been a learning experience for me. I've never done a tour of this magnitude or in this respect, but I appreciate you attending and watching this today. Please come visit us in Kinston. We'll do our best to make you feel at home the Southern way. Thank you.
You are tuned to the Nissan Communications Network. And if you tuned in too late, you can always watch each program in its entirety or download an MP3 audio file of it in the archives section on nissancommunications.com. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel, follow us on Twitter, and like us on Facebook. Sponsored by Atomos.com, makers of quality video recorders and converters, CarolinaApparel.com, and DeltaForce.net.